of somebody gone astray. All right, enough of that. LC, good morning.
Good morning, David.
Well, we had met, but we really first talked about 6 or 7 months ago down at the Public Theater, where it was a celebration of all the community groups. You were teaching at the Fortune Society, and you said to me...
Yeah, I think I told you I was planning a trip to Nepal where I was going to try to climb Mount Everest.
And I said, why?
It's a little bit of a complicated answer. I mean, I think I've been climbing mountains for a number of years, and I think in the back of my mind, that's always, something that a person who climbs wants to do, because it truly is a one-of-a-kind place. I learned a great word a few months back called ineffable, something that's beyond the description of words. And, going there was really like that, the size and scale and beauty.
You're an actor, though, are you not?
Yes, with my second career, yeah.
That's not part of the DNA of acting, climbing mountains.
I don't know, but if it is or not. But I think, going back to your original question on why I did it, I think, a big part of it was, therapeutic, something for my mind and less about my body. I joined Fortune Society under difficult circumstances. It was a part of a plea bargain with the Manhattan District Attorney that, I'd teach there for the first 3 months, and I enjoyed it so much that I just kept on doing it. But that event was really, almost destructive to my identity. I felt like I lost.
What led you to the Fortune Society?
Yeah.
So you've made lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, but I think it was partially an attempt to kind of reclaim my identity that I felt, I lost, 4 or 5 years ago. And, Fortune Society has helped a lot with that. But, doing something difficult and challenging and, was a way to kind of
the theater classes. Myself. So I've gone in a couple of times to walk into that room and see 15, 18 young men and women who have been incarcerated. The joy, as a teacher, I'm sure you feel that.
It's incredible. I mean, what Public Works has done with Fortune Society is really amazing.
Public Works is part of the
it's
Public Theater.
Part of the Public Theater, and they have a bunch of community partners, and Fortune Society is with them. And I think, of course I'm biased, but I think Fortune Society is probably the best one, because the people of Fortune have a tremendous amount of wisdom that they've acquired through, difficult circumstances. Survival, and they have amazing stories. And I think one of the most moving experiences I've ever had in my life was last year when we had our first rehearsal at the Public Theater on Lafayette Street, and the young director, Leah DeBessene,
brilliant lady, introduced us all, and it was almost like a religious experience. I don't go to church very often, but if I said if church was like that, if the joy in the room was anything like that, I'd be at church every Sunday. It was incredibly moving to see the joy of people. That's when they were preparing for the Winter's Tale at the Public Theater.
Yeah.
What a great production that was.
It was amazing. And I think musicalizing Shakespeare is a really interesting thing to do, because I think you can convey a lot.
Have you seen Something Rotten?
No.
You know what it's about? It's about... No. I want to get to your climb to Mount Everest, but Something Rotten is a musical about two brothers in a theater company in the end of the 15th century, and they're very upset because one of their actors, named Will Shakespeare, is getting so much attention with his writing, and they want to top him, and they go to a soothsayer, someone who predicts who can help them, and he says, I have something that I can help you with, and that is, instead of saying the words, sing them, and we'll call it a musical. And he starts singing with them until the whole chorus joins them, and they're singing this just crowd-pleasing number called a musical. And then he stops them, and he starts tapping his foot, and he says, and we can do feet movement with it, and we'll call it dance. Yeah. And I thought of what Lear does with the Public Theater, is that she has made pageants. I don't like pageants, but when I went to Winter's Tale afterwards, I said, I had such a thrilling experience. I saw the Winter's Tale, but I saw so much more.
Yeah, it was really an existential.
Were you in it, or what was you?
I was playing Camillo.
I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah, and I don't know why they took a risk giving me that part, because it was a great part, and the training that they were willing to provide you with, and the amount of work that they did with you to make you better. I mean, the difference between where I started and where I ended was like my performance or not. It definitely was better at the end of the summer than it was at the beginning. They just were really, really generous about working with you. I must have done my lines.
We'll come back to the theater, Elsie. We're talking with Elsie Connolly, but when I met you and you said when we really talked and you said you were going to Nepal to climb Mount Everest, I said that would be an interesting program when you came back. I'd love to interview you. And then I'm listening to the news, and they announce the earthquake in Nepal, and I said, "Oh my God!" It's when you hear some tragedy like that, it's a million miles away, and it's an unknown tragedy. But I suddenly said, "Elsie's there! Oh my God!" And people on Everest are being trapped. So, can you give us the trip? And you went with your wife and baby.
Actually, they were in Shanghai at the time.
But you traveled.
We traveled together, and the first couple of weeks of going to Everest, you're trekking up to base camp, which is in the heart of the Khumbu Valley at around 17,500 feet, and so there are a lot of people there, trekkers.
I know nothing about this. Do you go with a group? Do you climb with a planned? How is that all organized?
So. Nobody ever climbs Everest alone. It's a huge logistical endeavor to do. Just how you get food and fuel and do it safely requires a large number of people. So there are a number of big companies that provide logistics. So the company that I used was called International Mountain Guides, and they've been in the Himalayas for 25, 30 years.
When Hillary was the first one that we remember, I remember as a young person, he went by himself, didn't he, or did he have a team?
No, he had hundreds of people working with him.
Why did it take so many?
The reality is, living at altitude is just very difficult. Most of any high altitude mountaineering trip isn't really climbing. It's making your body get used to a very, very different and harsh environment. And so you have to spend months there. And
do you train beforehand?
Yeah.
What do you do? In the States, you train for the trip?
Yeah, you train by climbing and exercising, trying making yourself as fit as possible. But fitness doesn't equate to adaptation. Just living at altitude, your body has to undergo changes in order to, operate properly there. And the only way that happens is just by spending lots and lots of time there. So Hillary, spent months and months and months there, and had done many reconnaissance trips prior to a successful attempt.
And that provides a guideline for all future.
Yeah, in many ways, the way people climb Everest isn't that different from how Hillary did it. The equipment is different. The unknown risks are far fewer, but it's a huge expedition. You have many hundreds of people helping you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How many were with you?
At base camp, it's like a small village, and there are many different independent teams, with different kinds of goals and what they're trying to do. But it's a little village.
Hundreds?
Several hundred. Many hundreds of people there. Cooks, preparing food. Sherpas providing. Carrying capacity for stuff up the mountain, and then lots of climbers.
But the cooks are climbing with you?
No, the cooks will stay at base camp, and so you'll have meals prepared for you there. And then once you start climbing higher up the mountain, you're cooking closer at your tent, and then you or your guides are cooking your own meals.
And how many days is the estimated climb up and down?
So in order to a normal climber doing Everest, it's usually a 2-month endeavor.
Going up is 2 months?
Yes, because you just inch your way up the mountain. Your body has to adapt.
And then you just slide down coming home?
Well, you kind of run down. Yeah, you go as fast as you can. Usually at the end of every mountaineering trip, when most people, they just can't get off the mountain fast enough. You just want to go home and eat
and so it's a couple of months going up, but how fast coming down?
A few days.
Really?
Yeah, 4 or 5 days.
So this was your first effort.
This is my first effort at climbing Everest.
And we read of the earthquake with wounded and death. Where were you when the earthquake? And did you heard it and felt it?
I mean, I was right in the middle of it. I was. There's base camp. Then above base camp was Camp 1. We had gone through the Khumbu ice field, which many people I think have heard of. It's a huge glacier with blocks of ice the size of buildings. That's one of the cruxes of the climb, getting through that. And
you climb up the ice?
Yes. So prior to actually doing that, a group of specialized Sherpas called the Ice Doctors prepare a route to go through the ice field, finding the safest way to do it, putting in ropes, putting in ladders. And once they've done that really hard work, it's usually relatively straightforward to get through, and you try and go through as quickly as possible. So we had gotten up to Camp 1 and done a couple smaller climbs up to Camp 2 and had come back down. And, typically during the middle of the day, it's actually very, very hot because you're so far up, the sun is really, really strong.
How high are you at this point? How many feet up?
19,500 feet.
And the total is 28,000?
Yeah, 28,750.
And if you're climbing an ice glacier, how do you sleep? When do you sleep? And where do you sleep?
Your schedule's dictated by when the sun dips below the mountain and when it
gets very cold then?
Yeah, it gets very, very cold. So typically we'll go to bed at 7 and get up at 5.
So you're wearing heavy clothes for the cold, but you said it gets very hot during the day. You must be Chippendales, taking clothes on and off.
All day. You're stripping and then putting clothes on. But we were, it was noon, a little after noon at Camp 1. A lot of us were just taking a little nap. Very, very mundane things. My journal entry was just, trying to sleep, trying to get ready for the night's move. And all of a sudden, the ground just shook really, really violently. It wasn't like a tremor. It was, the earth just moved suddenly 2 feet to the right, 2 feet to the left, up and down. And, as soon as that happened, you just knew something was going on. And then the sound, it was like thunder that I'd never heard before, is big ice chunks up the mountain were cracking and then coming down the mountain, and you feel we ran out of our tent. Some people hadn't gotten their boots on, and the initial instinct was to run somewhere away from where we thought the avalanche was coming, but the problem was there wasn't any place to run.
Well, it was an earthquake, not an avalanche, wasn't it?
Well, what happened is
the earthquake
caused the avalanche, and that was the real danger for us. And so,
how far away from the epicenter of the earthquake?
The epicenter, I think, was probably 70 miles away.
And it had and did the ice start cracking?
Yeah. So just a tremendous amount of noise, and we realized quickly there wasn't any place to run, and I wasn't truly terrified until all the Sherpas, the people who...
The what?
There's a group of people called Sherpas. They originally migrated from Tibet into Nepal, and they provide incredible amount of work and aid to all the climbers there. They're just the most amazing people you've ever met. Incredibly nice, but unbelievably adapted to working and living there. They got into a circle and started reciting Buddhist mantras, and I think it was at that point, at least for a brief period of time, we thought our ticket had been punched. We thought this was the end. That question about how one's life comes to an end had been resolved. So there was no more curiosity about that.
I'm trying to get the picture. You're on the ice. Are you sliding down at this point?
No, it's a flat glacier, and what's happening is that you're surrounded by mountains, and an avalanche is coming down. And we just thought that was it. And you can't see, the snow's being blown up in the air, and the noise is incredible, and the wind is like hurricane force.
You could see nothing?
No, only maybe.
Now, we read
23 feet.
that of the hundreds that were killed and injured, many were the mountain climbers. Were any in your group? Did they disappear?
No, not in our direct group, and very fortunately, it didn't really make a lot of geological sense. But nobody where we were directly was killed or injured. And after we realized things were okay, I think it was very surprising. We thought, maybe life would go on as normal, but then we started hearing on the radio that something terrible had happened at base camp, and it didn't really register because base camp is, really large. And
base camp is on flat Earth, is it?
Yeah, it's on a flat section of the glacier. It was below us.
And what happened there?
Well, what we eventually figured out happened is that at the top of a mountain called Pomori, there was a huge deposit of ice, like many city blocks of ice, had gotten dislodged by the earthquake, had come crashing down, and essentially it was like a bomb going off. It just exploded, and it was the debris from that explosion that injured and killed so many people.
So the people on the mountain were safer than the people down below?
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. But
I still can't get that picture of you on this glacier with the snow so that you can't see even. I can't get a picture of how you get down with the noise and no seeing.
Well, we
no
definitely,
vision.
Yeah, that's why we just.
Were you clutching each other?
Yeah, we were in a big circle.
Did you have picks holding onto the ice?
No, it was just, it's just flat. It was a campsite, but, people just ended up kind of all hugging each other.
Are there women in the group too?
Yeah.
No children?
No children, but I think one of the surprising things is just how good a lot of women climbers are. I think the stereotype is, in that kind of sport.
Was there hysteria among the crowd from this, or did I can't even imagine. I can't imagine trying to climb Everest, much less being there during an avalanche.
I mean, there was an initial, and that was the funny thing. There was an initial point of panic, and after that initial panic, I think the feeling was just resignation that this is going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it, and you just make peace with it. And I felt, and maybe I had a lot of strange emotions. One of the emotions after, realizing that this might be it was, it wasn't a terrible thing. I felt that in the last 4 years, I'd been better at making connections with other people. And a lot of those connections were at Fortune Society or the Public Theater and with my family. And so it didn't feel as bad as I thought it might, because I felt like my spirit would live on, through those other people, and those other people would be able to go to my son and say, hey, your dad wasn't all bad.
Now, your son and your wife were in Shanghai. You had traveled to Shanghai, and you went on to Nepal.
Yes, yeah.
And they were just vacationing there, I guess.
Yeah, they're of Chinese descent. They're originally from Taiwan, and my son is...
Your wife is Chinese.
Yeah, and so my son is half Chinese.
Show you a picture. Claudia sitting in the studio, she showed me a picture of her son. The kid, you can just see the spirit and life in this boy when you see the picture. So the thought of losing them must have been...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, but it filled me with regret that I wouldn't be able to, maybe continue.
If I'm jumping around and if I'm missing a phase, tell me. But so you get down to the flat part where it's more devastated.
Well, that was an interesting story. After an earthquake, there were. There are always aftershocks, and we were prepared to stay put for a long period of time and kind of let things settle down. We weren't going to
stay put where?
Well, where we were up on the mountain. But what happened with just more aftershocks, it became clear that it just wasn't safe, but we didn't have a route down. And eventually a helicopter rescue was organized, and that was incredibly impressive.
Were you rescued by a helicopter?
Yeah, so they...
I've seen that movie.
Flying a helicopter at that altitude is really, really difficult. So,
well, with the mountain right there.
Yeah, and just the altitude, helicopters aren't really designed.
Did they pick you one at a time with that rope like I see in Schwarzenegger movies?
No, there was a place we we
They landed?
Yeah, we dug out a landing pad on a piece of ice, and they took 2 of us at a time, and so there were, they probably did over 100 sorties up and down the mountain, and it was just incredibly impressive to watch.
The nation of Nepal was prepared with
No, there are a couple private operators that operate out of Kathmandu and Lukla, which is a small city at the base of the Kumbhu Valley, and they provide a lot of logistical support for the valley, ferrying supplies and people up and down the valley.
So they weren't earthquake prepared, but they were prepared for rescue.
Yeah, the pilots the pilots who fly those helicopters are incredible. The things they're able to do and the places they're able to land, it's really, really incredible.
So take me on that trip. So where and what happened?
So they we got up about 4 a.m. and got ready. Buried a lot of the gear, and a lot of that gear will just be picked up next year or whenever another expedition comes up.
At this point, did you have audio communication with civilization? Anybody telling you that helicopters were coming?
Yeah. So, we always had radio contact with other people on the mountain, and then there's also like satellite communication, sat phone. So they organized the helicopters, got up at 6, just had to wait a few hours from my turn to get on the heli, and they got on, and within 5 minutes you're down to base camp. And then when we arrived at base camp, it became apparent how bad things really were.
But you didn't feel safe yet because you're still at this.
I think we felt okay. And
I was told that because of communication, you couldn't reach your wife. They had your wife and baby didn't know what had happened to you.
Yeah, we were able to satellite phone somebody in Washington, and they put a notice, Seattle, Washington, and we're able to put a notice on, a web page that, hey, our team was intact and things were okay.
Our tax dollars worked there.
Yeah, but it just was, there was so much information coming out, and a lot of it was wrong, that I think for about a period of 24, 48 hours, nobody really knew what was happening.
What was devastated in Nepal? Where was the great damage? I mean,
the great damage for the initial earthquake was really Kathmandu.
That's the main city?
It's the capital city.
Did you go there?
Yes, I did. I eventually wound up there. I was supposed to meet a friend of mine because we're involved in a school and orphanage in Kathmandu that exclusively works with incarcerated parents who have children, and what happens a lot of times is that the children don't have any relative nearby to take them in if their parents are incarcerated, and so they end up living with their parents in prison. And so this school, and I'll give a plug for it, it's an amazing organization. It's called the Butterfly Home. It's run by a young woman, 31 years old, named Pushpa Basane, and she, started the school 10 years ago when she was 21, just out of college, and she takes kids out of.
She's a native.
A native Nepalese.
That's what they call Nepalese.
Nepalese, yeah, and she takes those children out of, the prison system while their parents remain serving their sentence, and provides them with school and housing, and. So we eventually made our way back to.
Was the city Kathmandu. Razed or?
It's really funny. Some parts of it were completely destroyed, and some parts were just completely intact, with no real rhyme or reason. Nepal, as a country, is incredibly poor and impoverished, and so a lot of the buildings, just aren't up to scratch. And so if they're built in the wrong place, they ended up collapsing. In some ways, as bad as it was, it could have been worse because the earthquake was on a Saturday at noon, so many people were not inside their homes, because if they were, it would have been a lot worse. They would have been collapsed. They would not have
been killed by the building.
And that's the biggest danger. And most of the government-run public schools sustained a lot of damage.
How many lives were lost?
I don't know.
In the hundreds?
Oh, no. Well over 10,000.
Lost?
Yes.
Dead?
In the country of Nepal, yeah. And they've had subsequent earthquakes too, which have been pretty devastating.
Oh my God! And so, how long were you in that city?
Only a few days, simply because it was safer and easier to live outside the city. So one of the lucky benefits of being on a large expedition was that we still had food and fuel.
And you slept in your tents?
Month. And so we just slept in our tents in small villages up the Khumbu Valley.
And at what point were you able to contact your wife?
It was probably a week after. I mean, I don't think we ever spoke by phone until I got to Kathmandu.
Has she expressed to you the anxiety that they had?
Yeah, and I think it didn't fully register until after we were kind of reunited. A few days after that, she was really calm, but I think a few days after, when I was in Shanghai, she kind of let me have it.
How did you get from Nepal to Shanghai?
Commercial flight. So flew to Hong Kong and then
The flights were still running?
They were by the time we got there.
Airports.
Yeah.
Would you ever go back to climb?
Probably not. Probably not.
For your child's sake, may I suggest that you go to the local playground and climb the monkey bars?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that have to happen to climb a peak like that. One, you just have to have a lot of time, and but no, I don't. I'm not going back.
Are some of the others going back?
I think so.
Is there support for the people of Nepal coming from worldwide health organizations, and what is the ramifications?
I think a lot of the best help are coming from NGOs and private individuals, because they're just able to move quicker than government entities. It's a difficult country to organize large scale aid, because of the geography and kind of the politics there.
You were taken by the people, though, I can tell.
A couple observations that I had just walking through the valley is that, no matter how different cultures are, children play the same way. They just have their own imagination in their own world. And, the people are amazing. They're just incredibly generous, hardworking, lovely people.
So, L.C. Connolly, what's on your plate now?
This summer, the Public Theater again is going to be doing
The Odyssey.
The Odyssey, yes, a musical version of Odyssey. So I will be, involved in that. I've been cast in a small part for that. And
are you still teaching at Fortune?
Absolutely.
You're there on Thursdays?
I'm there every Monday and Wednesday night.
Oh, that's why I never see you, because I'm never there on Monday or Wednesday.
Yeah. And then sometimes I come in during the day for acting class or other musical events. But the teaching there has been, I think, one of the best things I've ever done. It's been the most enjoyable teaching job I've ever had. I've taught math to graduate students, undergrads, high school students. But there's something really special about the students I have. They they don't have a lot of academic knowledge, but their wisdom is amazing. And
you've had a marriage come out of it. Donald met during the Tempest. Didn't he meet from another organization?
Yeah.
He
Donald
met the
Gray.
woman that met his wife.
Powerful Pat.
Yeah. That's her name, Powerful Pat.
Yeah. So I'll be continuing to do that all summer and.
Have you seen the change in that man? It's incredible, isn't it? From when I first met him to now, he has such confidence, and he gets up and speaks publicly. And
he is. I can't say, Fortune and being involved with the theater has just given people. It's been existential for me. It's been existential for every one of the people I know involved, and it's hard to describe.
Getting up and talk. We took 3 young men to the Manhattan Theater Club is doing a summer internship program, and they have teachers, and they're going to train them, and they're going to create a theater piece based on their own experiences. These are all young men that have been in the criminal justice system, and I know that I know how it's going to be life-changing for them, because just the confidence that they gain. I've had civilians say, why do you have acting classes at Fortune? They think it should be all drug and alcohol and anger management. But the writing classes and the art classes and the theater classes and the music, that's the joy of life.
Those things feed the soul. And I think one of the most destructive things about being incarcerated and going through the criminal justice system is I think it takes a lot of your soul away, even after you leave. There's a huge stigma that you've been branded with. You have a scarlet letter, and it doesn't go.
Were you locked up at all?
No, I wasn't, and frankly, I would have been had I not had a good lawyer and had money. And that's part of the injustice of it. It's not applied equally. I've been the beneficiary of that inequality, but it's something I want to change very, very much. It's just not right. But the arts, you lose the sense of your identity. You lose a lot of your soul, and what the arts do is it feeds that and gives that back, and it gives people, a confidence. And you talked about it before, the applause, getting affirmation is incredible, because a lot of times they haven't had it, and people don't get that a lot in their day-to-day existence. But it's not affirmation for nothing. They're the stories and the wisdom that are being imparted through theater, and when you see a lot of these people in shows and performing, they're giving a lot of themselves.
Of course.
It's just incredible. And the set of auditions I went to, I guess a few weeks ago for the Odyssey, it was really nice because a lot more people are showing up to it.
Well, the word is out. You made reference parenthetically when you were in the mountain that you were writing a journal.
Yeah.
There's a book and all this, don't you?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Your whole experience. I mean, the theater and the mountain climbing and being in Nepal during the earthquake, that's a story that has to be shared. Your observations of the people, all the things that you talked about today, they're all connected in some way. You keep coming back to the spirit and the soul.
Yeah. It's funny, I reread...
That's your assignment.
Okay, I'll give you my first draft. You can be my editor. We're
talking with Llewellyn Connolly. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to play some music now. Both of our voices are going, but sharing the story is greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much for having me, David.
Thank you for joining us. Can you stick around a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
We'll play some music.